This may look like normal white paint, but it's actually so deadly that it's been banned in 73 different countries. Let's make it and see why. Now, if you haven't already guessed it, the substance that kills over 1 million people per year globally is lead. And the color we're making is lead white, a paint that has been used for over 2,000 years. And throughout all this time, the recipe has stayed largely the same. Sheets of lead are placed into a controlled environment with acids and bacteria that cause it to corrode and form a white powdery substance that we then mix with a binder, in this case linseed oil, and we turn into a beautiful paint. And don't get me wrong, it's beautiful, but it's just not worth the levels of toxicity. See, lead builds up in your system over time. It can cause the degradation and even total death of a lot of different organ systems, including your heart, your digestive system, your kidneys, your reproductive system, and even your brain. This stuff can cause your brain to shut off, guys. It is no joke. So we have this assumption that people in the past were stupid and they didn't realize that this was bad for them. But guys, they realized and they still used it. So why? Well, let's look at the different colors. You'll see that the titanium white that I have on the left is more stark, while the lead white is very warm. But when I mix in different colors into them, you'll see that that lead white actually retains the pigment much better than our regular white. I mean, it is a beautiful color, but is this really worth dying over? I don't know. This paint is made from one of the deadliest minerals on Earth. Despite that, it was used regularly for over 2,000 years. Let's talk about that while I suit up and make some so that you guys can see what it looked like. So for those who haven't caught on, the pigment we're talking about today is cinnabar or vermilion. And along with being a beautiful reddish-orange color, it also is a deadly neurotoxin that can have a heavy toll on your lungs, your brain, and your nervous system. And we have records going back since way before people stopped using it that describe how dangerous it is. So if that's true, why on earth would anyone use it? Because people use this stuff all the way from 4th century BC in China all the way up to the early 20th century. We're talking like the 1900s, guys. That was not that long ago. Well, it's a complex issue and there are a lot of reasons, but perhaps the most important of which was that this was the brightest red that people could get. And if I know anything about art, it's that artists will often risk their health for the sake of making something truly beautiful. But with the discovery and rise of cadmium red in the early 20th century, people simply stopped using it because it was too toxic, and its light fastness actually is not that great. However, it will remain one of history's most important and deadliest pigments. So what do you think? Is it worth it? Let me know in the comments what paint I should try and make next, and I hope you have a beautiful and very non-toxic day. We've already covered the fact that lead white is so dangerous it's banned in 73 different countries. But what about lead yellow? Well, unfortunately, that sunshiny color doesn't mean it's any less dangerous. Let's talk about why while we make it. So lead yellow, also known as Naples yellow, or at least this particular shade is made in much the same way that lead white is, except for during the process where the lead is being broken down, they also add antimony. Now, I don't think I have to remind you of the dangers of lead poisoning, but just in case, lead affects everything from your reproductive system to your respiratory system to your brain, and the long-term exposure of lead can lead to some pretty serious neurological conditions such as personality changes and some real bad brain stuff. And this damage to the brain may be the reason why so many artists were known for being eccentric, crazy, or depressed. You know, along with a million other reasons. And even though this famous paint was used by Vincent van Gogh in his early career, I have to tell you, he never ate it. Or any other paint for that matter. Though he does write a letter to his brother talking about eating some pretty nasty stuff, so, you know. Now, even though this paint has been used for over 3,000 years, I just don't think it's worth the risk. What about you guys? Do you think it's worth it?
Ooh, black and yellow. Yeah, let's shake it up a little.
I'm about to unbox one of the rarest and most dangerous paint pigments in history. Let's see if you can guess what it is before I reveal it at the end. And while I get suited up, here's a couple of hints. It was used in Victorian times, it's named after a popular city in Europe, and its main ingredient is arsenic. Not only was this used as a paint pigment, but it was also used in clothing, books, wallpaper, and even children's toys and sweets. Extra special art history brownie points if you actually guess what this is, but now let's see if you're correct. That's right, for all of you art history nerds out there, I actually managed to get my hands on Paris green, aka arsenic green, and holy cow, I'm so excited. Should I make paint with it? I don't know what to do! What if I told you that these toxic paints could actually save your life when it comes to picking colors for your art?
That would be inconceivable.
That's right, today we are recreating the authentic Zorn palette. But don't panic! You don't actually need cinnabar or white lead like I'm using here. You just need yellow ochre, ivory black, cad red, and titanium white. But what the heck is the Zorn palette, and how would it possibly help you get better colors in your art? Well, the trick is that sometimes with color theory, less is more. In the case of Anders Zorn, a Swedish artist who painted a lot in the 1890s, these colors were black, red, yellow, and white. And the reason why it's so effective and why so many artists still use it today is because it allows you to mix a wide range of colors while also limiting your color choices, making it a lot easier to get unified colors. Turns out that a lot of your favorite foods and makeup products probably have bugs in them. Let's make some paint out of them while we talk about why that's not necessarily a problem. The use of cochineal dates back to ancient Mayan and Aztec civilizations in South America. And the reason they were so carefully cultivated there was because of the powerful red dye that comes when you, well, squish them. By the 1500s, cochineal had spread to Europe and quickly became one of the most popular dyes among its highest elite. The rest is pretty much history, and we've been using this pigment as an additive and dye in everything from carmine paint to Yoplait strawberry yogurt or Betty Crocker's red velvet cake ever since. And before everybody freaks out in the comments, I want you to think about this. Not only has cochineal been repeatedly proven to be safe by the Food and Drug Administration, but surely it can't be any more off-putting than eating, say, honey or gelatin. I think that there's this conception in Western civilization that thinks that eating bugs is really odd and off-putting, but a lot of different cultures eat them regularly and really enjoy them because they're a great source of protein and vitamins. So what's the problem here? They haven't been shown to be harmful, and if it's a natural red dye, then it may be better than any of the chemically synthesized stuff we're eating anyway. At the very least, you have to admit it sounds pretty metal to say that you had bugs with your strawberry ice cream. Thanks for watching. I hope you go out there and have a great day, and don't die unless it's with cochineal. This may look like regular green paint, but it's actually one of the deadliest paints in human history. Can you guess what it is? As a few hints, it was extremely popular in Victorian times, it's named after a prominent city in Europe, and its main ingredient is arsenic. That's right, folks, we are talking about the infamous Paris green, otherwise known as emerald green or arsenic green. Now, emerald green was first introduced in 1814 and was used by a lot of notable painters in the 19th century. But what's fascinating is that this beautiful color made from copper and arsenic wasn't just used to create paint. It was also used in everything from clothing to wallpaper to children's toys to medicine, which is pretty bad when you consider that arsenic is actually extremely toxic and should not be consumed under any circumstances unless you want cancer, liver problems, or death. Interestingly, even though the use of arsenic greens pretty much stopped at the end of the 19th century and were replaced by things like cobalt green, Paris green actually lingered for a few more decades, being used as an insecticide on potato and apple crops and other things like that. Pretty scary when you think about it. But I have to say, even though for obvious reasons I would never use this green myself, it is a really gorgeous color. What do you guys think? Is it worth it? Thanks so much for watching, and remember, don't eat paint. What the heck does this paint color have to do with maple syrup, snake oil salesman Rembrandt, and literally pooping yourself to death? Well, let's delve into making this deadly color and see why it's no longer in production by most paint companies. That's right, folks. Today we're talking about gamboge, that delicious tree goop that has been used to create a rich and vibrant yellow since the 700s. Gamboge comes from trees that grow primarily in Cambodia and is harvested by tapping into the bark and draining the sap like maple syrup, except it's way thicker and yellow and deadly. You see, it's an extremely effective laxative, or what we in the business call a Taco Bell special. When ingested, it forces you to immediately liquidate your assets, often until you die. Isn't that fun? Interestingly, gamboge was marketed by many health professionals, snake oil salesmen, of old as a cure-all. It was not. In fact, it led to the unfortunate situation of multiple people, well, pooping themselves to death. Perhaps that's why, despite being used by many artists for over a millennia, most paint companies just don't make it anymore. What do you think? Is it worth it?